This is CBC Here and Now.
Services are slowly being restored here in the city of Mount Pearl, but overcoming all the harm that's been caused by a very long and bitter strike is going to take a while.
It's divided our community.
Nobody wins in the strike. All right, the residents suffered.
We'll have that story coming up.
Hurricane Fiona is set to impact Atlantic Canada this weekend and potentially make landfall as the strongest storm on record. I'll have the latest details.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Well, picket lines are down, employees are returning to their jobs, and services are slowly being restored. That's the situation in Mount Pearl tonight as an 11-week strike comes to an end. Here and Now's Terry Roberts takes us there.
The big blue trucks were rolling again today in Mount Pearl, and at the wheel for the first time since early July, unionized workers. Off to collect garbage, recycling. Other workers were here, preparing the ice surfaces, readying the pool. Basic services that Mount Pearl residents have learned to live without during the longest labor dispute in the city's history.
We understand the hardships that caused, but we had no choice.
Workers like these cast secret ballots on Tuesday evening on a proposed contract. Not an overwhelming endorsement, about 65% support.
The membership is happy. Everybody respects the fact that everyone's situation is different. We're all one vote.
City Council voted unanimously to approve the contract this afternoon.
It's a deal that's fair for our employees, but it's also a deal that's good for our residents.
The 4-year deal includes a 9% pay hike, a reduction in sick days from 21 to 18, but with 2 new personal leave days. Meal allowances up by $2, and the number of people scheduled to work weekends for snow clearing operations will increase from 4 to 6. The union feels it successfully fought off attempts by the city to extract costly concessions from workers.
Those concessions that were on the table were the reason that we went to the street. There are no concessions.
We're going to see the cost to the city increase.
The city saved more than $1 million during the strike. The mayor is not ruling out tax increases as the city prepares a budget for next year, but
that's not my expectation. Council is very focused on managing the city.
The strike revealed some deep divisions between both sides. The city accused strikers of intimidating and bullying managers as they attempted to provide core services. The union holding fast at various picket lines.
I think in the short run, it's divided our community.
The relationships right now between us and management are strained.
The mayor confirmed today that the province's Occupational Health and Safety Division will investigate alleged violations, but disciplinary action is unlikely.
No safety violations, we had no damage to equipment, we had nothing criminal.
It's not so much about the discipline, but it is about accountability from a safety perspective, not necessarily from an HR perspective.
Workers went back on the city payroll today, secure in the knowledge they will continue to receive competitive wages and benefits and 4 years of labor peace.
This certainly is an employer of choice.
But it's a phased approach. By Monday, all of the more than 200 workers will have reported for duty. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
Well, people in this province are keeping a close eye on the track of Hurricane Fiona. It's now a Category 4 hurricane, packing winds of 215 kilometers per hour as it heads north toward Bermuda. Hurricane Fiona slammed Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic as a Category 3 earlier in the week, dumping heavy rain and triggering devastating flooding. Up to 8 people are believed to have died. About 75% of Puerto Rico remains without power, and many places are also without clean water. And the storm is expected to hit southern and western regions of the island this weekend with the potential for heavy rain and high winds. On the west coast, the mayor of Channel Port aux Basques is warning residents to prepare for the worst.
The eye of this storm is probably barreling down right on this region right here in the Port aux Basques area. And, for that's giving people a lot of concern. People are nervous about it. All I would say to people is, take all precautions that you can. You can't over prepare for this stuff. So whatever you think that you should do, you should get it done. Don't have the attitude that, we've been through these things before. Always prepare.
And Brian Button says the town is encouraging residents to put away or secure all outdoor furniture on their properties. We'll hear more from the mayor of Channel Port-aux-Basques coming up in about 13 minutes on Here and Now.
All of that very good advice, certainly, as we have the next couple of days to prepare for what is coming. But Environment Canada still has a tropical cyclone statement in effect for most of all of the island and southeastern portions of Labrador. And really, if we zoom out, we're seeing that pretty much for most of the maritime provinces as well. This system will affect all of Atlantic Canada as we head through the weekend. Just taking a look at the setup right now, because a couple of these things are really going to play a role in what happens over the next 24 to 36 hours. There's Hurricane Fiona there, and we do have a couple of systems. This cold front actually is what's going to slingshot it towards the Atlantic provinces, and then we've got an area of low pressure bringing some rain out ahead of Fiona, and we're going to start to see that for the southern areas of the island. Already starting to see it, but we'll see that continue tonight. Some areas could pick up between 20 to 40 millimeters of rain. Again, that's ahead of Fiona. I'll get into the details for the rest of the forecast coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, turning now to the latest COVID news. In the past week, one person in the province has died due to the virus. That person was in the Eastern Health Region and in their 70s. There are now 2 people in hospital, which is down from 4 hospitalizations last week, and there is no one in critical care. The head of the province's COVID-19 Hazard Index estimates that 1 in every 100 people in the province are now infected with COVID. She says the risk of contracting COVID is very high, and that protection from people's 3rd doses has long worn off. Well, the province's health minister says Newfoundland and Labrador needs to get better at recruiting and retaining nurses. Tom Osborne says teams are going abroad to do just that. The CBC's Heather Gillis reports.
Health Minister Tom Osborne says recruiters are in Ontario this week looking for more nurses. They're going to search the United Kingdom and around the world, too.
We are focused on recruitment of staff to help our healthcare professionals carry that load.
Newfoundland and Labrador is deep in a healthcare crisis. Hospitals in St. John's have been at overcapacity for 3 months. A quarter of the population doesn't have a family doctor. Rural ERs have closed due to staff shortages this summer. And last weekend, the ER at the Health Sciences put out a plea for nurses. They only had half the staff needed for the long weekend. Eastern Health CEO Ken Beard says they've had difficulties.
Our staff are working extra hard because they have more patients than we normally plan for.
Beard says they're using travel agency nurses to fill gaps until they can hire more nurses from the province's recruitment efforts.
We currently have over 3,000 applicants, which our recruitment team is in the process of reviewing.
Baird expects 21 internationally educated nurses to graduate from a bridging program later this year, but questions remain if efforts are enough to fill the province's 600 nursing vacancies. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
The biggest offshore oil bid in this province's history won't be going ahead. 4 years ago, a company spent a record amount on 2 offshore exploration bids. And now, according to a report from publisher All Newfoundland and Labrador, those plans are being abandoned, and the PCs want to know why. Here and Now's Daryl Roberts has more.
One of the key players in the exploration and a major bid, the largest in our history, the company themselves now are pulling out of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Progressive Conservative leader David Brazel says he wants answers.
And willing to take a fine rather than invest in it. So that sends a message to us that something has happened either from a federal perspective or a provincial perspective.
It was seen as proof of a bright future for offshore oil in Newfoundland and Labrador. In 2018, an Australian company called BHP bid more than $750 million for 2 exploration licenses, a record amount for this province.
In June 2022, Woodside and BHP Petroleum merged to create a new chapter as a global energy company.
In June of this year, Woodside Energy acquired the licenses, and according to a report from online publication All Newfoundland Labrador, those exploration plans have been scrapped. It isn't clear why the company has abandoned the bids, but according to All Newfoundland and Labrador, employees are already being moved out of province. Energy Minister Andrew Parsons sent along a statement, which reads in part, "It is disappointing to hear Woodside's decision to close their offices and exit the offshore. We understand this is a business decision of the newly amalgamated BHP Woodside entity. Climate scientists have called for an end to offshore oil exploration, but Parsons says he's optimistic about the offshore industry, including this year's call for bids. Brazel says he doesn't know why Woodside pulled out of the province, but he wants the provincial government to find out.
So there are some questions that need to be asked and answered here by the government, provincially and federally. So we want those answers to be put out to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, because we don't want the wrong message to be sent to the industry.
Woodside Energy says no one was available for an interview. Daryl Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Now, just before airtime, we reached Andrew Parsons in Edmonton. He says there is a silver lining. Woodside Energy will have to pay for pulling out of the project.
Whenever any company puts a bid in, there's basically a deposit that's made that if they don't move forward, they forfeit. It's usually in a range of 25%. So in this case, we're looking in the ballpark of just over $200 million that will be forfeit. Maybe a little bit off there. Obviously, it could be scaled up or down, but that's the ballpark.
Well, now to Western Labrador, the Mine X convention and trade show wrapped up in Wabush today. The event brought together industry players to discuss the future of mining in the area and abroad. Here now's Daryl Din brings us that story.
Over 150 participants took part in the convention and trade show, and from what was said, things are looking up for mining in Labrador West. The topics range from expansion to modernization to lowering carbon emissions. The CEO of Takora says he's feeling positive about the industry here.
We feel very bullish about the mining industry in Lab West, and the reason for that is because the operations here produce a premium grade iron ore, and as you think about what's going on in the steel industry today, there really is a green steel revolution going on where steel makers are challenged to reduce their carbon emissions and meet the various targets, global targets on reduction of carbon in their processes. Proud of the fact that 100% of our baseload power comes from clean, renewable hydroelectric power.
The conference and trade show brought groups like Trades NL promoting their services with an eye to inclusion.
We have an Indigenous office in Labrador, and part of what we're trying to do is promote the Indigenous trades and look for opportunities to get them employed.
So our office is located in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and we do the Indigenous interest and line of activities for Trades NL. So our job and role is to promote, recruit, and support Indigenous skilled tradespeople to advance in apprenticeship, and to full-fledged journey persons.
The Labrador West Chamber of Commerce organized the event. As hopeful as they are for the future of mining here, they think more needs to be done to improve the quality of life in Lab West.
There's opportunities to make it a better place to live. It's a fabulous place to live. We have an incredible amount of recreation. It's a good lifestyle, but you know it has its problems, and so there's lots of work. There's lots of good jobs. But, you know, if you can't find a doctor and you can't find an airplane ticket and things that could be better about living here, that would help. So until there's more housing, until some of those issues get solved, you know, we're going to see people flying in on planes and paying income tax in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and PEI. And on an unemployment level, there's lots of work. We would like to see it be work where people stayed and worked here.
The big takeaway from this week's event is the greening of the industry and how the mines in Labrador West are already well positioned by the hydropower they're using and the high grade ore they're producing. Now the focus needs to be on how to keep people in the region. For CBC News, I'm Daryl Din in Labrador City.
Well, after an incredible 76-year run, the Newfoundland Herald is halting print production. The Herald has been a staple for local culture, arts, and entertainment over the years, and today it announced that the magazine would move online, where archival editions will be posted. The final edition of the Herald is out now, featuring Queen Elizabeth and King Charles on the cover.
Well, fall officially arrives tomorrow. We've got that to talk about and Hurricane Fiona. I'll have all the details coming up.
Well, it looks like southwestern Newfoundland will bear the brunt of Hurricane Fiona in this province, with powerful storm surges, winds forecasted to be over 120 kilometers an hour, and rainfall amounts between 50 and 100 millimeters. Joining us now is the Mayor of Port aux Basques, Brian Button. Thank you so much for being here.
Good evening.
Well, it's almost time to batten down the hatches, I suppose, for this storm coming Friday night. What is the town doing to prepare?
Well, we're going through our, the regular routine of when we predict and see these storms starting to head our way. We have our crews out, checking a lot of our, our storm systems and making sure that they're up and ready and that we don't have any problems. The worst thing about these storms, usually when they come in, it's our systems and whether they can handle it. Systems aren't designed for these type of things, and sometimes we run into problems. But to try to alleviate some of that, we are certainly having our crews doing a fair bit of work around checking And, we're trying to prepare up some areas where we know that it's some possible trouble areas.
And it was only just last year that Port aux Basques saw that major rainstorm. The town was cut off from the rest of the province for a time. How is the town's infrastructure now, having gone through that? Have there been any improvements that you think might help you this time around?
Well, Carolyn, that's probably one of our biggest concerns. We suffered some damages the last time around with the storm that went around, especially to some of our infrastructure, and we've had applications in the system to get these some of this work done, and we've been still waiting for government approvals to get some of these areas fixed up and back up and secured. So some of these areas are still exposed. So that is a major concern. I know our MHA has been working to try to get this through the system, but we've had these applications in now since March, and we'd like to have this all done, but unfortunately there are some areas where it's giving us some grave concern, especially with this storm barreling down on us. I do know we have a one particular area that's close by us that's been it's an area where we know there's some culvert problems there, and I'm just hoping that that'll hold up and get through this weekend before that work is done. But we've always had that concern of what could go on, and this type of storm and what we're seeing so far and what's been forecasted, we may see the brunt of it.
How are residents preparing? What are you hearing from people there?
We've been stressing, and that's probably been our biggest message, knowing that, we still have out our summer items, our patio furnitures, and so on and so forth that are around our properties, and barbecues that are out. So, we've been trying to say to residents in the next, we've got a little bit of time here, but not a lot. We're asking residents, to do their part on their properties to get their things inside, get it hauled inside. You can straighten it all up later, but we need to get it all hauled inside, because we don't need these objects that are going to be out causing problems either to residents or flying around in the street or anything like that. So these things can pose some major problems. So we're just trying to stress to residents, we need to do our part as well. Make sure that you're prepared around your own properties. You have your generators just in case of power losses, batteries, all, we've got batteries and so on and so forth for your batteries and for your lighting, I should say. But the main thing is around your properties, and making sure that you have things either put away or secured.
And there might even be a little aspect of mental preparation for this as well, because I'm sure the memory of the troubles last year is still pretty fresh in the minds of residents there. How is everyone feeling right now?
Well, I've seen and talked to a lot of people last day or so, and I'm seeing a lot of posting through social media as well. And people are, they're concerned about this one, because all the talk about it is that, it is making its way, and the eye of this storm is probably barreling down right on this region right here in the Port aux Basques area. And, for that's giving people a lot of concern. People are nervous about it. All I would say to people is, take all precautions that you can. You can't over prepare for this stuff. So whatever you think that you should do, you should get it done. Don't have the attitude that, we've been through these things before. Always prepare.
Yes, for sure. I've heard Ashley say that this week, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Mayor Brian Button, thank you so much for this.
No problem. Thank you. And be safe, everyone.
Some good advice there, Ashley. And I was wondering about folks in the east. We've been talking a lot about the west coast and southwest coast, but what about like the Avalon? Should people be putting things away here? How much of it do you think we'll get here?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. We're still going to see gusts far-reaching across the province, between 80 and 100 kilometers per hour. So that's nothing to shake a stick at. It's definitely still pretty strong. So if you do have some lighter items, just put them away.
Okay, I have a lot of plants on my patio. I should probably tuck away somewhere.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. But yes, Fiona is a massive storm right now anyway. So let's take a look at what's going on. We'll have the latest there for you. So there's the storm. You can see that well-defined eye there. It's a Category 4 hurricane at the moment. Still about 215 kilometer per hour winds as the Hurricane Hunter passed through earlier today. Gusts about 260 kilometers per hour, and that central pressure down to 937 millibars. Just to put that into perspective, it's actually going to deepen even more as we head through the next couple of days. And the lowest pressure that has ever made landfall in Newfoundland and Labrador, well, really Atlantic Canada, was 940 millibars. So if this continues on this trend, this could be one of the strongest storms that has been seen in the Atlantic provinces for sure. So what's going to happen over the next couple of days? The track will continue north towards Bermuda, eventually head northwest, which has been forecasted fairly well over the last couple of days. By Friday afternoon, still at about 205 kilometer per hour, sustained winds around the eye of the hurricane. And then things are going to start to change. That cold front that I showed you a little bit earlier is going to start to interact with this storm, and then it's going to become post-tropical. That really doesn't mean anything, because even though it won't have its tropical characteristics, the storm will actually strengthen and get bigger, and that's why the impacts will be so far-reaching across the province, or across the Atlantic provinces rather. So even though we lose that hurricane icon, it really means nothing. As you can see by Saturday morning, early Saturday morning, 165 kilometer per hour sustained winds still expected with the system. And then even as it makes landfall, 140 kilometers per hour. So definitely a strong storm, not one to take lightly at all. And then that will head towards Newfoundland, towards Labrador rather, as we head into Sunday morning, where you're going to see some fairly strong winds with that one as well. As far as rainfall totals, talked about this over the week so far, but the heaviest rain always falls on the left side of the storm. And you can see, zoom this out for you just to see, because it is Atlantic wide, where all of the impacts will be. So we're talking 130 plus millimeters of rain for a good chunk of Nova Scotia, as well as PEI. And then if I zoom in towards Newfoundland and Labrador, you can see even up across the Big Land, you're looking at between 50 to 60 millimeters on the high end, but really 30 to 50 towards the coast. And then the most rain will fall for southwestern portions of the island, and we're talking between 75 to 100 plus millimeters. Definitely not out of the question by the time we get into Sunday. As far as wind goes, now this will be far-reaching right across the Atlantic provinces, so I pretty much made it a little easier to see. So 70 to 100 kilometers per hour will be a wide spread. Here's the track of the system. So right around is where we should see the strongest winds, but still fairly spread out if you think like Nova Scotia through to western portions of the island. So that's where we should see the strongest winds, 100 to 130 kilometers per hour. Time frame arriving for the southwestern portions of the island overnight Friday into Saturday morning, and then continuing. The track will determine just how strong those winds are, but at this point that is what it's looking like. And as far as wave heights go, this is a big storm. It's going to generate a lot of wave action, certainly along southern areas of the island. This is one model's interpret. It's off the chart, over 20 meters of waves possible for the Cape Breton area. And then we're talking southwestern areas of the island. This is near 12 meters. You combine that with storm surge and those winds, it does have the potential to create a lot of damage. And that will continue through Saturday. And then by the time we get into Saturday, you'll start to see that head towards the coast, and then continuing into Sunday as well. The waves will come down a little bit there through the day, but definitely a significant storm. There it is there again, but we do already have some showers that are working their way out ahead of the system, and that's going to bring rain out ahead. But then temperatures tomorrow, they're looking into the teens for the most part. There you go, 20s as we head towards the west coast. Those winds out of the south around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. And then as we look towards Labrador, those temperatures again between 14 to 17 or 19 degrees. But we're going to talk about the potential for snow for Lab West as we get into the end of the week, and we'll talk about the impacts as well for you across the Big Land when I come back.
serving up a slice of life lessons. The St. John's Pizza Shop and Bakery is breaking down employment barriers for young people one pie at a time. Well, for some of the staff who work at Crust Bakery and Pizzeria in St. John's, the job is about more than kneading the dough, so to speak. It's about second chances and breaking down barriers to employment. Crust is a social enterprise run by Choices for Youth, and it's designed to help young people turn their lives around. We dropped by to find out more.
This is our first social enterprise in the food space for Choices for Youth. I was tasked on about a year ago to come up with a food product or food service that we could kind of mold into mentorship programs for youth ages 16 to 29 as our clientele for participants. So yeah, what makes it different from a traditional restaurant is any revenues or proceeds or anything that is made by youth that we're selling goes back into the programming and supporting them in some way and to sustain our business here.
Can you tell us more about the people who work here? Yeah. Who benefits from this?
So we see all walks of life. So there's different barriers. It could be educational, it could be mental barriers, mental health barriers, or addictions, or issues with housing. But we see everything from just people looking to get their first job. Some people are coming out of a system, whether it's jail or just mental health things going on, or addictions, all kinds of stuff. And some people just need a job, or they're looking for help for further education, whether it's GED or going on to that post-secondary.
And it's something that they can put on their resume, I imagine, for the next job that they want to get.
That's the idea, right? So we take them on, and we want them to be somewhat workplace ready, but that's what we do, is to harness those skills. So we offer a cooking program for the specific social enterprise. It's called Yes Chef. We're doing recruitment for it now, actually. So the last one we did was at the farmers market. So we hired a chef to facilitate that program, and they work with our training team within our department as well. Then they do an interview with me, and if they're workplace ready to an extent, then we'll take them on here for a stint, about 9 months to a year, and then we trace their progression.
And what kind of progression have you seen from the participants so far?
Yeah, so this is our, we just opened, so I do have a handful of youth. I had 2 with me that are going on to cooking school, actually. One of them just started, one of them started in a few months, so we helped them along with that. They didn't have any experience in baking or cooking whatsoever, and they came in and really enjoyed it. One of them did a business program with us, and then they did our cooking program, and she really liked it, and she went ahead and did. She's still working with us now, and she's going to cooking school currently, doing both, so it's incredible.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm the baker here, so I mostly just make all the doughs in the morning and get everything ready for the displays. And overall, just anything that needs to be done, homemade jams or just measuring, cleaning, I'm here for it. And also the pizza prep at lunch and supper. It's like, it's a lot. I started doing a program here. It was a cooking program to then start working at Crust. And I started it and I was like, okay, this is amazing. I found out I loved cooking, so I was like, okay, I'm staying. And they haven't got rid of me since, no. I don't know, I really love baking and cooking. It's just something that's like, I finally found a hobby for myself. It brings this comfort, and then you feel like just accomplished when you make something, or seeing other people love your food. It's just like, it brings a warm feeling, so.
Yeah, a lot of comfort, particularly in pizza.
Yes, pizza's like amazing here. It's like the only pizza I eat now.
Tell us a bit about your backstory. Like, what were you doing before you came here?
Well, I was in high school trying to finish, and then bad stuff happened and I had to go to a shelter for a bit, and then I found myself an apartment, and the cooking program came. I did that, and I ended up with this job, which has been like the best opportunity ever. I finished high school. I'm already in post-secondary now. I got like a whole place to myself. I'm just chilling now. It's really good.
You're still so young, you're 19 years old. What kind of a difference has this made to your path in life so far?
Well, honestly, like, I don't know where I would be without this job, without the supports the job offers. Like, it's just such a dream job for me, like my first job, and like, I'm so happy to be here, like the coworkers, the environment.
What are your hopes for the future? Like, you're learning some valuable skills here. What's next for you?
Well, right now I'm in post-secondary, so I'm hoping to finish that and then get a diploma, and love to work on the ships or in Boise Bay, stuff like that.
What kind of changes have you seen in the people who've been working here so far? I know it's still new, but...
Still new, but I've seen immense change in all the participants that I've had so far, whether it's been a couple weeks on with me or 9 months to a year that I've had a few of them. It's the confidence, it's everything. It's their social interactions, or it's their progress with the actual baking and the food that we're making. A lot of them, I'd say most of them, had no experience whatsoever. Some of them are coming in with some kitchen experience and stuff, which is great, but I can also see how they're elevating what they know already within a couple weeks or a couple months that they're here. It's wild.
And I imagine it's, about more than just being able to put it on a resume for their next job. They're working with a team. They're learning new skills.
Exactly. It's a social aspect of it too, and they work with our support team. So we have a support social worker, so we're tagged to Crust here, and that works within our department and within all the other supports and choices for youth. So they come in and do their check-ins and all kinds of stuff. So if there's anything comes up and they need help with income support stuff, or they want to go get their GED if they need that, those kind of things, to bring that up again, that support is there.
It's kind of like the old saying about, a hand up rather than a handout.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
It's just mentorship for us.
Right.
Yeah.
And how does that feel for you?
It's humbling, you know, and it is rewarding, I guess, to go back to that, to see the progress like we talked about before, right? For me, coming in from like working for traditional restaurants, working with great teams, I've had a lot of privilege to work with great chefs and restaurants locally and otherwise. So to bring that privilege that I had, some people probably didn't get. So to help out with that is, yeah, it's humbling, it's rewarding.
It sounds like the kind of opportunity that could change a life.
100%.
Well, Nick King, thank you so much for telling us about it. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming down.
Thousands of officers from across Canada and the U.S. turned out today for the funeral for slain Toronto Police Constable Andrew Hong. The 48-year-old was shot and killed last Monday while on a break getting coffee at a Tim Hortons just west of Toronto. Police are calling it an ambush attack. 2 other people died and 2 were injured in the series of shootings. We'll have more news after the break. CBC News has confirmed the federal government is likely to drop a number of COVID-19 travel rules as soon as next week. The proposed changes include dropping vaccine requirements for foreign travelers entering the country, and random testing of vaccinated travelers would end. The ArriveCan app would become optional, and that's required for travelers to declare their vaccination status and travel plans when entering Canada. The measures are currently set to expire on September 30th. Well, the Indigenous population in Canada is growing almost twice as fast as the non-Indigenous population. This is according to new figures released this morning by Statistics Canada from the 2021 census report. Now, it also found that the Indigenous population is also younger than the non-Indigenous population. The CBC's Olivia Stevanovich breaks it down for us.
More than 1.8 million people identified as Indigenous in the 2021 census, an increase of nearly 9%, nearly double the growth in the non-Indigenous population. This means the Indigenous population now accounts for 5% of Canada's total population. And while the pace of growth is not as high as it was in previous years, for First Nations, they've now surpassed 1 million people for the first time. And researchers say there are two key reasons for this increase.
One of which being what we call natural population growth, that is births and then differences in life expectancy and increasing lifespans. But we also see other growth from response mobility, and this is people that are answering the census differently.
He says more people are identifying as Indigenous, and the population isn't just growing faster, it's younger too. The average age of an Indigenous person is 33. For the non-Indigenous population, it's 42. Most Indigenous people live in Western Canada, but of all the provinces and territories, Ontario has the largest Indigenous population. And when it comes to languages, the number of people learning an Indigenous language is up by 7%, but those whose mother tongue is an Indigenous language is down by 4%. And some things haven't changed. The number of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children in care is still high. First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children make up about 8% of Canada's total population of children, but they represent more than half of the kids in care. Olivia Stevanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, there was more than just a spot of trouble for some cars in Edmonton. Just take a look at this, a sinkhole that swallowed up several cars in the parking lot of a luxury car dealership yesterday. As you can see, 4 vehicles altogether topped over into the crater, 1 on the bottom and 3 at various stages of falling in. It took workers about 90 minutes to get the cars out. And as for what caused the sinkhole, well, that is yet to be determined. Sending out a big congratulations to St. John's-based musician Kelly McMichael, who performed at the Polaris Music Prize Gala earlier this week. Now, Kelly didn't walk away with the $50,000 prize, but she did make this year's shortlist. Very well deserved. Congratulations, Kelly. A former Fisheries and Environment Minister from Nova Scotia has found a crafty retirement project, one he says is inspired by his former political career. The 69-year-old is finding a new use for hundreds of tons of discarded rope. The CBC's Colleen Jones went to Woods Harbor to see it for herself.
Just to make sure that everything is locked.
From his man cave in Woods Harbor, I find Sterling Beliveau making yet another basket. Long before he became a politician, Sterling was a lifetime lobster fisherman. He left school at 14 to be on the ocean. His guidance counselor told him it was a huge mistake. He agreed to disagree. He learned to weave as a young kid.
It's not going to go nowhere now. I just got to go through all these.
Now he's an army of one trying to find a solution to the rope crisis that exists in the fishing industry.
I'm confident in saying 99.9% of it is going to our landfills.
His solution? Use this old rope to make new products. This is his big pile of rope in his garage. I tell him he'll never get through it. There's a lot more rope stashed out back.
Probably around 400 or 500 tons a year in our tri-counties going to landfills.
And there's a lot of rope, so he keeps weaving, coming up with new products like dog beds, fancy knots, of course rope mats, even this double-wide hammock made all from rope. He takes his wares to local markets, but another product he's making? Boat bumpers.
This is an ATV tire, again, that has been disposed of and thrown away.
Every boat needs bumpers. The problem with tires?
$1 million boat, $2 million boat, and they don't want to scruffed up with a black mark from a tire.
Enter old rope, reusing two things.
30 hours of work, and I've got one covered with rope. The same thing. The fishing industry is creating this surplus of rope, and they need to start utilizing it and creating a product from it.
He says everyone wants to do something about the environment and the ocean, but it seems like it's never enough.
I knew that every minister, environment, fisheries minister, had a mandate letter, and they probably still got them on their desk. We need to do something with plastics and rope and basically keep clean our oceans. And you can see that happening now, but to me, there's not too much being done, and I'm being gentle here because I think that it's
a politician being politically correct.
Yeah, you got it.
So as an army of one, with his weaving and one piece of rope from the very big pile, he's looking for solutions to an age-old problem. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Woods Harbor.
A city near Edmonton is taking a deeper dive to see what's going on what's going into their bins, rather. They've commissioned an audit to see how residents are doing when it comes to separating recycling and trash from compostables. CBC's Emily Fitzpatrick takes a closer look at the messy job.
No black bags should be in an organics bin.
Stacey Shub-Sabo likes to call herself a professional dumpster diver, and she was hired by the city of St. Albert to do just that. Her job is to sort through the waste from 100 homes to see if people are using their green bins correctly.
We have about 40 categories right now, which means paper will be broken down into mixed paper and cardboard. Organics, for example, will be broken down into edible food, inedible food, compostable paper, other organic wastes such as the coffee stir sticks, like wooden stir sticks or popsicle stir sticks.
Along the way, she finds plenty of common mistakes.
So we have often found where a person will have a takeout food bag and they're finished their lunch or meal and they'll just dump it into the compost bin. And what we'll find inside that takeout bag is those plastic dipping sauces. We'll sometimes find straws that are not compostable. We'll find even unopened ketchup packs. So those are materials that need to be put into the garbage stream.
This is Shub-Sabo's second audit for St. Albert. The city will use her findings to help grade their compost program and determine where they should focus their efforts.
So the spring and the fall audit data will be compared to see if there's any trends in organics contamination and the type of material that is being composted. And then we crunch all those numbers. We present pie charts and figures of composition tables and items that were identified as contamination.
It's a stinky job, but she's happy to do it. Emily Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Edmonton.
Yeah, that looks stinky.
Mm-hmm. My job looks much easier than that.
Yes, and you have a very difficult job this week, digging into something different, into Hurricane Fiona, watching that as it tracks towards us. So you're going to look at the long-range forecast now.
Yeah, and we're also going to look ahead to the fact that in all of this, fall starts tomorrow.
All right.
I know. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, when does fall start? But yes, tomorrow at 10:30 p.m. In fact, let's take a look at the graphic there. So that means at this time of the fall equinox, we have equal day and equal night. Barely. It'll take a few days to get there, but at this point, sunrise will be at 6:47 a.m. and sunset at 6:58. Oh boy, we're below 7 o'clock, before 7 o'clock. So when I leave, it will be dark. But yeah, so the first day of fall actually is looking pretty rainy for a good chunk of the island and even up across Labrador. And as we head through the afternoon on Thursday, we're going to see that. So this cold front here, I know you don't see it, but this is a cold front, and that is what is going to bring Hurricane Fiona towards the Atlantic provinces as we head through the day on Friday. And there it is there just south of Nova Scotia at that point on Friday evening. So that's when we're going to start to see those winds pick up. Now the track exactly and what happens once it passes over Cape Breton and potentially heads towards the southwestern portion of the province, but how close it gets will determine when we see those strongest winds for you. Otherwise, pretty much right across the board, across the province, we will see those strong winds through the day on Saturday, anywhere from 70 to as much as 100 kilometers per hour. And we may be talking about some snow as well in Lab West through the overnight and into Sunday morning. So definitely going to have to keep an eye on that. But as the storm continues to track across Labrador, we will see some rain through the day on Sunday, some gusty winds as well for you. And then we'll say goodbye to that through Monday, but it definitely will be a weekend event. Temperatures for your Friday will be into the 20s for the most part, high teens, low 20s through the day, even up across Labrador, except Lab West, where you will hang on to those temperatures around 4 degrees. So you're going to see the potential for some snow in the mix. And then for your Saturday, this is when the main event will move in, but temperatures will be somewhere between 17 to 20 degrees across the board. Again, some windy conditions right across the board. And then Lab City will be sitting around 7 degrees, the coolest temperatures. And again, with that potential for some snow in the mix. Taking a look at the long range forecast, Sunday still looks a bit breezy through the day. But by Monday, we should see some clearing skies and about 19 degrees. We'll say goodbye to the wind for a little bit, at least the strong winds. Central Newfoundland, you'll see some windy conditions as well. Through your Saturday into Sunday, staying gray with a chance of showers. And then for Western Newfoundland, sun might peek out for you on Monday. And then for Labrador, once you see the windy conditions on Saturday, Sunday will start to improve certainly by Monday. Single digits the story for Western Labrador, but by Monday we should be back into the double digits. Great shot here. Love this one, beauty shot.
Gorgeous.
John Clark shared this great one with us. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to Facebook, Twitter, or email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beauty shot indeed. It's a beauty of a shot. Well, yeah, so it's going to be an interesting week, especially for you. You're going to head to Port aux Basques.
Port aux Basques tomorrow. Yep, gonna get on a flight, and we'll be doing the show down there for tomorrow and Friday as well, and then through the weekend.
All right, well, I'll be watching.
For sure.
That's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Good night.